Namaste friends. Let us move on to the chapter Reproduction in Organisms part 2. As we discussed completely about sexual reproduction, let us move on to sexual reproduction. Before that, let us solve the remaining questions which are included under asexual reproduction. So let us start with the 17th question. So the part which is grafting on stalk, or you can say that generally we'll say STOCK, that is stalk. The part which grafting on what is it, is stalk of another tree. So stalk, which is also called as stump, right, which is with root, it is a root part, and on that which is going to fix, that is called as scion, right? Scion, that is shoot part. So with variations, so majority of variations will be there in scions. Scion, that is desired character, what we required to get, that is mainly dependent on or depends on scion. So answer for that is D, right? Next, plant identical to mother plants can be obtained from. So if you're going to consider that the plants which are identical to mother plants, where you can say the one, it should be asexual reproduction, or you can say that in that we have discussed, that is vegetative propagation. So whereas in sexual reproduction there will be variation. So seeds which is obtained, that is because of the fertilization. It is a resultant structure of fertilization, right? So this is obtained because of fertilization, right? So if fertilization is there, right, so generally we can say that there will be variation. So we can't say that there will be identical, right? So there will be a difference. So in this case, what is it, the stem cutting, where it includes under vegetative propagation, where the plant which is obtained, they are identical to their parents. So in case of stem cutting. So next question, among the following, which one is not a method of vegetative propagation? So as we discussed that generally the budding is a form of asexual reproduction, but it is not, what is it, the vegetative propagation. So here, so in this, what is it, the thing we can say that which is not a method of vegetative propagation. So budding, where we can consider as the vegetative propagation under this asexual reproduction, we can consider this also, that is budding, layering and tissue culture, that is what micropropagation. But sowing seed is not generally a vegetative propagation. Sowing seed is not a vegetative propagation. Right? So that is what, if it is, it includes seed, that is related to the sexual reproduction. Right? So seed is, resultant of sexual reproduction. That is the product obtained because of the sexual reproduction. So asexual reproduction, layering, budding and tissue culture. And the answer is sowing, right? Sowing seed, or you can say that sowing the resultant structure that is obtained because of sexual reproduction. So that is why it won't come under vegetative propagation. One of the plant using foliar adventitious buds. So foliar means ear, leaves. So foliar adventitious buds. So foliar means leaves, right? On leaf, right? So where you can say that the buds obtained. Adventitious buds, I already mentioned that, right? These are obtained, right? In case of, what is it, the bryophyllum. So bryophyllum, in which, what is it, we have obtained, what is it, using method of foliar leaf adventitious buds. So that is in case of bryophyllum. So this we discuss, and there are given difference between, what is it, bulbils and bryophyllum, right? Next, in which of the following polyp pairs does not found? So generally when you can say that the structure, the polyp, which will be like cylindrical and with the tentacles, Hydra, which includes under the Hydra, which comes under the polyp. And here we can select the answer for this is so Obelia, Aurelia, Physalia. So which is not a polypase, right? So polypase it won't include. So as we all know that generally the phase which will be vary from what are the organisms to organisms, right? But here the if you consider that the polyp generation to what is it the medusa asexually and medusa to polyp sexually. So that is what medusa to polyp, right, sexually. So in this generally in case of what is it the Hydra is the polyp, Obelia which includes both polyp and Physalia, it includes both Physalia which only includes what is it, the medusa. So Aurelia and Obelia which includes next question for this. Stem cuttings are commonly used for propagation of. So stem cuttings are commonly used for propagation of stem cutting is commonly used for the propagation of, right? So as you all know that generally that is the banana, it won't be like that, that will be rhizome will be used, or you can say that the the underground stem which will be used, mango we're going to use a plant, and cotton here also that is we're going to use a plantlet. In case of rose we're going to use stem cutting. Right, so stem cutting is commonly used. What is it in case of, so here I think this is related to animal kingdom, we already discussed there, right? This is not related to the this chapter. Next, the term clone cannot be applied to offsprings. The term what is it, the clone cannot be applied to offsprings. So here mean what is that exactly? The clone cannot be applied to offsprings formed by sexual reproduction, because why? There will be a variation. Clones we know that no such variations will be there. So hence we can select answer for that is offspring do not possess exact copies of parental DNA. So why there will be a variation? So variation is the exact copies won't be there, right? So that is why we can say, but whereas here there will be exact copies, exact, right? copies of parental DNA will be there in case of clones, but here offsprings do not possess or do not have exact copies. DNA only one parent, DNA of only one parent is copied and passed on the offsprings. That is, here we can say that is in case of clones, right? So the term clone cannot be applied to offsprings formed by sexual reproduction, because here two parents will be involved. Offsprings are formed at a different time, generally at the same time. Generally when two individuals are in their reproductive phase, they're going to produce, right? It will be vary, and DNA of parents and offsprings are completely what is it, the copied. So if you can say completely transfer, right? So here we can say that they completely different, right? So DNA of parents and offsprings are completely different. That is what variants. So clones, where you can say that offsprings do not possess exact copies of parental DNA. Variation is there. In simple term, we can say that amoeba and yeast. So amoeba and yeast reproduce asexually by fission and budding respectively, because they are. So generally we know that almost all the unicellular organisms will going to show fission and budding. So that is why we can consider this a microscopic organisms. So it is not like all microscopic organisms will produce always what is the fission and budding. There are different forms. Heterotropic, so this is also wrong. And then unicellular organisms. So amoeba and yeast reproduce asexually by fission and budding respectively, because they are unicellular what is it? Organisms. Next, a few statements with regard to a sexual reproduction are given below. So what are those statements? Let us read. Sexual reproduction does not always require two individuals. So whenever we're going to consider this generally, so first let us look what is we have to select. Choose the correct statement. So sexual reproduction does not always require two individuals. So it is required. So we can't say that sexual reproduction does not always require two individuals. Sometime where you can say that it mimics, you can say generally parthenocarpy, right? What is seedless fruit will be produced, right? So that is where we'll consider that generally it is not like always required. Sexual reproduction generally involves gametic fusion. So here we can say that gametic fusion won't takes place sometime. Gamete will be involved and no what is it further development. Gametes directly develop into individuals, that which mimics, right? So individual. So meiosis never occur during sexual reproduction. So it occurs. It never occurs. It occurs. That is wrong. External fertilization is a rule during sexual reproduction. It's not like that it should be always external. That is, here you can say internal fertilization is a rule during. So both 1 and 2 we can consider as a correct statement with regard to sexual reproduction. So answer is 1 and 2 statements. Sexual reproduction does not always require two individual. Sexual reproduction generally involves gametic fusion. Right. So in parthenogenesis, or you can say that it mimics, but we can say if gamete is involved, that is a sexual reproduction. Sometimes it directly develops into young one and no fertilization will be there. Given below are a few statements related to external fertilization. So what exactly the external fertilization? We know that. So we'll take up some the points related to that external fertilization. When external fertilization takes place, as we all know that the fusion of gametes occurs outside the body. So fusion of gametes, right? Fusion of gametes occurs outside the body, right? So here you can say that fusion of body occurs outside the parental body, or you can say body outside the body of an organism. Outside the body of an organism. So here, so very interesting thing, we can say that whenever there is external fertilization, sometime some individuals which will going to produce, they will going to utilize external medium. The medium will be water. So but whenever they are going to use external medium, sometime some organisms use external medium, but they won't show the external fertilization just to transfer their the gametes, right? So here gamete transfer which will be going to take place, right? Water medium is required, right? So where you can say that algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, water is a medium which is required. But when it comes to this bryophytes and pteridophytes, there will be internal fertilization. One exception it gone. That is in bryophytes and pteridophytes, water medium is required to transfer their gametes, but in which there the internal fertilization will be there. Internal fertilization. Make a note of it. So answer for that this question, 26th question, we can select. The male and female gametes are formed and released simultaneously. So let us choose a correct statement they are asking. So there should be a synchrony. If it is going to release in different time, they will be affected by they will move. The chance factor is very high, and they will move along with the water, right? So synchrony should be there. Yes, we can consider. Same time should be. Only few gametes are released into the medium. So it is not like that only few gametes. A large number of gametes should be released. So when external fertilization is there, so large number of gametes should be released. So water is a medium in majority of organisms exhibiting external fertilization. Yes, we can consider that water is a medium in majority of organisms exhibiting external fertilization. It is not like that in majority of organism. So where some organism which will include, that is what I mentioned, that is the external medium is required for three, that is algae, including this bryophyte and including this bryophyte and pteridophytes. One more we can add here, algae. So for these organisms, not majority, that is few organisms like algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes, we can't consider. This is a wrong statement. Offsprings formed as a result of external fertilization have better chance of survival than those are formed inside the organism. So generally, whenever the organism will going to develop, right, externally, let us select the male and female gametes are formed or released simultaneously. So this we can consider it as a correct. Synchronous should be there. Only few gametes are released. So this is a wrong statement. Water is a medium in majority of organisms exhibiting external fertilization. See, in bryophytes and pteridophytes, we can't consider that the internal fertilization. Sorry, external fertilization. Here is internal fertilization. So we can't select water medium. Majority offsprings are formed as a result of external fertilization, a better chance of survival than those of, so organisms have not better chance. So here only one, so is the correct answer. So choose the correct statement. Offsprings are formed as a result of external fertilization have a better chance of survival than they formed inside. Here will be production will be there. It is a wrong statement. So only one and few gametes. So select the correct statement. So instead of here we can make, instead of 4 we can only 1. Option only 1 is a correct answer. Right. So all others are wrong. Next, the statement given below describes certain features that are absorbed in pistil of flowers. So generally we can say that the pistillate flower means where the plant, or we can say that the female flower, right? So pistillate means pistillate flower bearing. What is that? The generally we can say that the stigma, right? Right. So this is what pistillate, difference between that is the pistillate and staminate. So pistillate, where you can say that the pistils will be there. So stigma, ovary, and stigma, style, and ovary. So that is in simple way pistillate flower which bears pistil. That is what gynoecium, right? So pistil may have many carpels. So here we can say that the multicarpellary. So that is we can select and right. So each carpel may have more than one ovule. Each carpel may have more than one. That is also we can say that one more ovule. And each carpel has only one ovule. So here only we mentioned that more than one ovule can be present. Wrong. Pistil have only one carpel. Wrong. So there will be many carpel. So multicarpellary. So correct answer for this, what is it? Is 1 and 2. So first and second options. So second points are correct. So option A is a correct answer. So appearance of vegetative propagules from the nodes of plants such as sugarcane and ginger is mainly because of. So this appearance we can say that generally nodes where meristematic tissue will be there. So meristematic, the cells are a tissue which will be there. Nodes are shorter than the internodes. No, nodes are longer, right, than the internodes. So these are the nodes, right? Internodes, here you can say these are the shorter than the nodes. So if you consider nodes, So here we can get one more node. So that is what the nodes are longer than the internodes. So that is wrong. So nodes are meristematic cells, and nodes are located near the soil. No, they are located, what is it, generally in these points where nodes and internodes, the point will be there. So not here, that is where nodes and internodes will be there. Here we can expect that particular wrong. The nodes have non-photosynthetic cells. No, they are with a photosynthetic. That is why meristematic. So B is the answer. Differentiation in morphology of the two sexes of a same species called. So generally we can say that where the variation will be there. So somewhere in gametogenesis, we'll mention that sometime the similar gametes will be produced. Sometime similar gametes which will be produced, they are called as isogametes. So isogametes are the gametes in which the similar gametes, we can say that they structurally and morphologically similar appearance will be there. So that is, we'll say isogametes in cladopora. So cladopora, which is an alga, right? So alga in which we can say isogametes. If they are dissimilar, in the exactly external appearance, by seeing that external appearance exactly same, you can't be able to differentiate. It is not possible to differentiate those gametes. But here, if you can differentiate those gametes, where differentiation can be done, differentiation of gametes will be there. So such gametes which will be called as heterogametes. Heterogametes. So heterogametes which will be there in best example for that is, this is also an alga, can consider as a fucus, and then higher organisms, fucus and alga. So exactly for this, differentiation in morphology of two sexes of same species. So this is related to gametes. Same like that, if individual like human being, if you consider male and female, sexual dimorphism will be there, no? Male is different, and same like in cockroach, right? So these which are the example of, what is that, sexual dimorphism. So answer for that is, means two individuals which are different, which are with different sex organs. So male and female, cockroach. So that is, here testis in male and ovaries in female. So sexual dimorphism. And at the same time we can say that sometime the croaking sound, that is what you can say, that where croaking sound made by frog. So it is just a sex call for female partner. So just to attract. So here we'll take some the questions, some concept to the sexual reproduction. As we already discussed there, some events, right? Sexual events which will be there. So there we can say that this is pre-fertilization event and fertilization event and post-fertilization. Let's say pre-fertilization. So here it includes mainly two, what is it, the gametogenesis, right? Two steps, or you can say that it includes the formation of gametes. Formation of gametes is called as gametogenesis, and the gamete transfer. Once a gamete is produced, it has to transfer, what is it, into the female reproductive tract, or to the, what is it, the near to the female reproductive structure. So that is where fertilization can occur. So gametogenesis, here we can say in male it is called as, I have already mentioned, that is spermatogenesis and oogenesis. So what is that? The production of gamete. So which are gametes are always haploid. So gametes are always haploid. So formation of male and female gametes. So gametes are always haploid. Formation of gametes is called as gametogenesis, and in, what is it, the male spermatogenesis, in female oogenesis, and can be differentiable. So based on that, if we can't be able to differentiate, they are called as isogametes, and if you can differentiate, they are called as heterogametes. Just now I mentioned that. And other than that, in male, right? So which are called as, those gametes are called as sperm, or you can say that antherozoid. Antherozoid. And in female, that gametes are called as egg or ovum. Egg or ovum. So based on sexuality, so here we can also mention that the how, whether the individual with a single sex or what is it, the with both the sex. So here we'll say, use a word, what is it, the homothallic. So where we can say that homothallic monoecious ಒಂದು homo b ಅಂತ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. homo bi, what is that, homothallic. Individual both sex, homothallic, right? So this term generally used to represent sexuality in, what is it, the fungi and plants. In fungi and lower plants, in fungi and plants, they're going to use homothallic word to represent, right, where an organism, what is it, the bearing both what is it, the male and female reproductive structures. ಎರಡು ಇರುತ್ತೆ. Homothallic, that is, it represents the bisexuality in fungi and lower plants, bearing both male and female, what is it, the gametes, or you can say that sex organs. Sex gametes, or you can say anything, you can say sex organs. And monoecious. So monoecious generally we're going to use to represent. So this is also in the fungi and plants and higher plants. So in higher plants we can use, what is it, monoecious. So what it includes mainly, so coconut, cucurbits, right? Coconuts and cucurbits are the monoecious. Coconuts and cucurbits are the best example for monoecious. And bisexuality. So bisexuality which will be there, so bisexual which will be used in both, what is it, the lower animals. Generally we'll say in animals we will use hermaphrodite term, that is hermaphrodite. Bisexuality will be there in, where you can say that the earthworm and tapeworm, sponge, NCERT examples are very important. Tapeworm and one more, that is leech. So cattle leech. So and here in animals we're going to use one word that is called as hermaphrodite. So hermaphrodites are, in animals we're going to use bisexual animals. The term represents bisexuality in animals. So bisexual animals represent ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. So that is both male and female organs will be there here. And opposite to that we can say that ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಮೋ ಬಿ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ವಿ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಟ್ರೋಥೆಲಿಕ್. ಸೊ ಇಫ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಟ್, ದಿ organisms which are with different sex organs, or you can say that the individual with single, what is it, the sex organ or sexual structures. So one is heterothelic. So in this case, heterothelic, we can easily mention that organisms, different individual like has different individual, or can say in here also we'll use fungi and plants. So that is why we'll heterothelic we can use for fungi and plants, heterothelic and dioecious. So this which will be different individuals, right, carry male or female sex organs, not both. Here any one sex organ will be there. So in this, plants will use dioecious, in animals unisexual. So that is what we comes under this. So here we can write cockroach. Here we can write, what is it, the cockroach is the best example, right, where you can say that the unisexuality. And ಎರಡು individual based on sex we can classify, that is male and female, right. Dimorphism will be there. And dioecious example we can write here, what is it, the papaya and also date palm. Papaya and date palm are the best example for dioecious. Unisexual, cockroach, and along with that human being you can write so many animals under this. So as we all know that based in plants we can also mention that some plants are male plants, that is staminate flower, or I can say that the staminate means in flowering plants the flower which bears stamen. What is that stamen exactly? That is a male reproductive structure. Staminate male flower, right? So pistillate female flower. So just now we discussed about this. So pistillate plant bearing pistils, right? Or we can also call it as carpels. Pistils we can also mention them as carpels. So that is the one. And gamete transfer, when the gamete transfer occurs, there will be a medium is required. So medium is required for that. I already mentioned that algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. But even though they are going to use the external medium to transfer their gametes, but bryophytes and pteridophytes, internal fertilization will be there. And that is what gamete transfer. Lower plants like algae and fungi, both male and in case of gametes in algae and fungi, point to be noted, algae and fungi, both male and female gametes are motile. In some only the male gametes are motile, but here both male and female gametes are motile. Motile. And sometimes we can say that the motile male gametic, in most of the organisms male gamete is motile and female gamete is static, and this are male gametes are smaller, right, and these are little larger compared to the male gametes. So medium is required for this. So in case of the plants, angiosperms, in case of angiosperms, the transfer of gametes, which is called as gamete transfer, which is called as pollination, transfer of the pollen grains from anther to stigma. So that is what pollination. So that is where the male gamete reaches the female gamete. And pollination may be with the help of water sometime, and with the help of wind, or you can say that some insects, animals can be done. And next stage here we can mention that next second event. So here better to write this second type of event is fertilization. We all know that what is the meaning of fertilization. So here we should keep it in mind. Fertilization may be external fertilization and internal fertilization. So external and internal, one of the very important thing we have to keep it in mind. External, that is outside the body. Fertilization which takes place outside, here inside the body. Right, here always it includes a medium, right, within the medium which takes place. And external fertilization, when the different types of fertilization which will be there, generally we can mention here bony fish and frog. Not all fishes are external fertilization, only bony fishes and amphibians, frogs. Bony fishes and that is what we can say frogs means amphibians, which is going to show external fertilization. And along with that algae we can write here. So here, even though they are going to use water as a medium, it includes the bryophytes, pteridophytes and gymnosperm, angiosperms, and along with that higher animals. So where you can say that reptiles, birds and fishes, here we are going to write cartilaginous fishes. This is very, very important. Cartilaginous fishes. So cartilaginous fishes, which are the example for internal fertilization. So bony fishes, external fertilization, and reptiles, birds, mammals, and mammals are the best example of what is that internal fertilization. So here point to be noted that this both bryophytes and pteridophytes uses external medium to transfer their gametes, but they won't show external fertilization. They comes under internal fertilization. So last is that the post fertilization events, and third one post fertilization. So in which post fertilization event, so before going to take this the exact difference, what exactly post fertilization here, one significant thing you have to keep in mind that in external fertilization always the large number of gametes will be produced. Large number of gametes should be produced. What is it to ensure what is it the fertilization, and they should maintain what is it the both should release into the surrounding medium at the same time, right? So in order to enhance the chances of fertilization, large gametes, and they should release at the same time. Here it is not like that. So smaller number of gametes will be produced, number of gametes, and here you can say that it is not like that it should release at the same time. So it will be vary, but here also we can expect that when ovum will be there, only during that time sperm should be released. Then only we can expect. And here the offsprings which are produced, they are more vulnerable to predators. Offsprings which are easily affected by predators, vulnerable to predators. Chances of the survival is very less, right? So offsprings are extremely vulnerable to predators, threatening their survival up to their adulthood. Alli vargu adult agovargu affect ಮಾಡ್ತವೆ. So here it is not like that. There will be the parental care up to certain age. There will be a parental care. So and post fertilization, as we all know that, which is the development of zygote, it includes, and embryogenesis, that is after fertilization, right? So one year you can say that the zygote development, I already mentioned that zygote development may be haploid development or diploid development. So once the external fertilization which occurs, zygote formed in the external medium, and internal fertilization, zygote which is going to form inside the body, right? So zygote which is going to ensure the continuity of the generation. I can say that the continuity of species between organisms of one generation to the next. ಈಗ ಒಂದು zygote ಬಂತು ಅಂದರೆ ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಜನರೇಷನ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ zygote is what is the structure of the previous generation, and where it is going to develop into next generation it ensures. And we can say sometime this will be going to show haplontic life cycle. So where you can say that the haplontic life cycle, wherein which the haploid zygote will be produced, that is haploid zygote. So haplontic life cycle, zygote undergo reductional division, so to produce haploid organism. Haplontic life cycle, haploid organism, that is zygote undergo meiotic division, that is haploid organism. So in diploid organisms, so which can undergo meiosis. So in zygote diploid, right? So zygote undergo meiotic division in haploid organism, and zygote undergo, let me put like this only, zygote undergo mitotic division, zygote undergo mitotic division in diploid organisms. So that is what you have to keep in mind. Diplontic life cycle, so that is what mitotic division. And one very important thing, that the cells to produce a gamete which will undergo meiosis, they are also called as meiocytes. Cells which can undergo, here not an organism, diploid organism undergo mitotic division. The zygote of diploid organism undergo mitotic division. Zygote of haploid organism undergo meiotic division. So this is very important. Meiocytes means these are diploid cells which will undergo meiosis, reductional division, to produce gametes. Specialized cells to produce gametes. They are the meiocytes. So that is what. Finally, embryogenesis. So here, embryogenesis, embryo formation. So zygote develops into embryo. The process of development of the embryo from zygote. So when embryo from zygote develops, there we can say the embryogenesis. Already mentioned that cell division will be there and cell differentiation. Cell differentiation will be there. So when differentiation occurs, different the tissue will going to produce. So that is what specialized tissues and organs will be produced based on where that zygote develops into embryo, based on whether the zygote develops outside the body of the female parent or inside the body of the female parent. When zygote development based on where zygote develops, so organisms can be classified into oviparous and viviparous. Animals mainly classified into oviparous and viviparous. As we all know that oviparous, egg laying, the organisms, viviparous directly give birth to young ones, whether they lay egg or directly going to give birth to young ones. Here oviparous, they lay eggs and later the eggs should be incubate and they are going to produce young one. That is, we can say lay egg means that is a fertilized egg. Directly they are going to give birth to young ones. So this is what you have to keep it in mind. So let us take remaining question related to these concepts. Which type of reproduction is found in Hydra? So already we discussed that in Hydra, right? So we can say polyp to medusa, medusa to polyp. So that is why both sexual and asexual reproduction can be. So polyembryony, we can discuss this in the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. So many embryo, production of many embryo. Right. So parthenogenesis already we discussed. Encystment, that is formation of thick layer, right? In case of amoeba, we can say that, or in some bacteria, encystation. So thick layer wall will be formed around the cell, that is amoeba, and during unfavorable condition, this layer, thick wall layer formation is called as thick wall layer formation is called as encystation, that is encystment, where organism will going to show that development. And Jamul formation in sponges fill in. So Jamul formation in sponges fill in. What is that? That is a type of asexual reproduction. So Jamul formation, that is what internal budding. So internal budding is a type of form of asexual reproduction. One of the minute cell which separates from the animal egg during maturation is known as animal egg. So generally egg and oogenesis, there will be polar body development, right? So polar body develops. So where the polar bodies will be produced. Minute cell which separates from animal egg during maturation. So that is what during formation of primary oocyte, one polar body will be produced, and during secondary oocyte formation of ovum, what is the total? 3 polar bodies will be produced. So at the end of the oogenesis, 3 polar bodies and 1 egg, that is secondary oocyte. So next question, the final event in the process of fertilization is, so once that the final event which will going to produce, so final event in the process of fertilization, that is the formation of zygote, structural changes in male and female gamete, and egg activation, amphimixis, And then organizational change in egg cytoplasm. So whenever we're going to say that when the final event, the processes, right, of fertilization, once a fertilization is going to takes place, so finally we can say there is a structural variation, structural change in both male and female gametes, which takes place and egg activates. Once egg activates, it is going to show further meiotic division, organizational change in egg cytoplasm. So not in the cytoplasm, that is in the nucleus, that is egg activation which is going to takes place, development. That is what which leads to zygote formation. The sperm without acrosome cannot. So we know that acrosome with hyaluronidase enzyme and acrosin. These are the lysine enzymes, acrosin. So lysine enzymes which helps in the penetration into the ovum. The size of the egg chiefly depends upon the egg, which totally depends upon the total amount of the yolk. So size of the egg is depend upon the total amount. So that is sixth question. Here we can take that is the amount of yolk which is present in the the egg. So that decides the size of the egg, total amount of yolk. And that is seventh question. Here we can say that when more than one sperm establish contact and penetrate into the egg, then it is called as polyspermy, right? So when that enters, and that will going to leads to development of twins sometime. Which type of stimulus is used to achieve the parthenogenetic development? So parthenogenetic development, sometimes chemical change in pH, picking with microneedle, all the above. So here we can use some chemicals, and also we can change the pH and picking with the micro or the needle. Parthenogenic development. So answer for that, the 38 is all the above can be used. What is a common between vegetative reproduction and apomixis? So common between vegetative reproduction and both are asexual form, right? So both are asexual form. Right? And both which are going to produce a progeny, right? Which give a progeny which are genetically similar to that. Asexual form are genetically similar. Both are applicable only dicarpons. No. Both bypass flowering phase. No. Both occur round the year. Both produce a progeny identical to their parents. So D is the answer. So what is true for a cleavage? So I've already mentioned that once a cleavage which is going to take place, that is repeated cell division without increase in cell size. Cleavage andre repeated cell division will be there without increasing, or you can say that without increase in size. Size decrease actually, and number increases. Number of cells increases. So this is you have to keep in mind. So size, where we can say that the size of the cells decrease without increase in size, means size of a cell decreases, cell number increases. So 40th answer is B. Next one, during regeneration, modification of an organ to other organ is known as. So generally when the body cells which is going to reorganize. So body cells which is going to reorganize, that is called as morpholaxis. So morpholaxis is the reorganization of body cells, in which epimorphosis, this is reorganization of body cells, and epimorphosis is new cell proliferation. New cell develops. Morphogenesis, where you can say that the modification of organ. So that is Morphogenesis, modification of organ to other organ. So that is answer for that 41 is A. Right. So that is what is that the accretionary growth that is in the plant cells. Sometimes where the cells will be the ability to divide and produce new cells and replace the or-not cell. So if this is the cell wall and there are some cells, if it is damaged, right, so some specialized cells will be there. If these, assume that these are the specialized cells, if these cells which are damaged, and these will be replaced by these cells, further proliferation. So that is what accretionary. So that is in plants, cell wall formation. 41. Exponential growth cells means where cell number keep on increases. So where exactly we can expect tissue culture that finally develops into a plant. Multicellular organism which reaches unicellular organisms, here also it reaches the final peak level. Embryo, where you can say that the complete exponential growth of a cell will be there in the embryo. So that is what somewhere will say J-shaped curve, exponential curve, which is J-shaped curve. Next question. In rhizopus, sexual fusion takes place between. In rhizopus, sexual fusion takes place between. So generally, when an organism which is going to produce in rhizopus, right, where organism which is going to produce the sexual fusion takes place with the help of. The third question, you can select the answer here. Two gametangia, formation of two gametangia. So takes place, sexual reproduction takes place by conjugation between two multinucleate but single cell. These are multinucleate, many nucleus will be there. Gametangia, multinucleate, but single cell. So that is what we can say, two gametangia which will be involved in sexual fusion, right? That is where we can say isogamous. Gametes are isogamous, and in case of rhizopus we can say non-motile. They are not motile. And next, 44th question, the main difference between animal and plant cell. So we know that the plant cell lacks rigid cell wall. So plant cell in which rigid cell wall, main difference between animal and plant cell. Plant cell lacks rigid cell wall. No. Plant cell with rigid cell wall. Animal cell lacks rigid cell wall. Yes, so that is no rigid cell wall. Plant cell possesses small vacuoles, animal cell possesses large vacuoles. So answer for that is the 44th question. So animal cell rigid. So this is the correct answer. And the last question, root is adventitious when it is, what is it? Generally, if you want to consider that the adventitious when it is formed from a plumule, right? So formed from a plumule. So root is adventitious root formed from the plumule. Root usually underground organ that lacks some buds and nodes won't be there. It absorbs water and minerals, but in this condition, root is a growing in unusual location. Example, from a stem, that is what formed from stem is the roots, right? So that is what you have to keep in mind. So answer is C. Next, a modification of bud that can bear leaves, flowers, fruits and branches is. So 46th question. So a modification, right? So modification of bud that can bear leaves, flowers, fruits and other branches, right? So that is what sharp structure which leads to thorn, right? So it can be leaf modification agatado, flower kuda, fruit and branches, that is a thorn. Identify the wrong statement regarding post fertilization development. So identify the wrong statement regarding post fertilization event. So 47th question, right? Ovary wall develops into pericarp. So that is where you can say that the ovarian wall that develops into pericarp, correct. So ovule develops into seed, that is what after, that is embryogenesis. Post fertilization, ovule develops into seed, ovary develops into fruit, ovarian wall develops into pericarp, ovarian wall develops into pericarp, right? And what is it, the integument develops into seed coat, integument develops into seed coat, outer testa and inner tegument, and all other sepals and petals will going to fall off. So 47th question, the answer, outer integument of the ovule develops into tegument. So actually here outer integument which develops into testa and inner integument which develops into tegument. So which is a wrong statement here? Outer integument of the ovule develops into tegument. No, that develops into testa. So this is a wrong statement. So 47th B is fusion of nucleus, triple nucleus develops into endosperm. The fusion of nucleus develops into endosperm. That is correct. That is what triple fusion. Ovary develops into fruit. So everything is correct and B is wrong. Dicot embryo consists of. So as we all know that the dicot embryo which will be present seen in the dicot plant seed, or you can say dicot plant, right? In which we can see that radical, primule and cotyledon, single cotyledon we can consider as scutellum in monocots, and sometimes endosperm will be there. So B is the answer. The parthenogenesis refers to a fruit. So whenever we are going to consider this a fruit, that is a fruit will be developed, but no fertilization, we can say seedless fruit, seedless without fertilization. So 49th D is the answer. Next, which of the following is parthenocarpic fruit? So parthenocarpic fruit, that is seedless fruit. So here we can say that the sometime we can obtain that in the papaya, right? So papaya is the best example, that is a parthenocarpic fruit. Next, endosperm in angiosperm. So we know that generally endosperm is formed by the fusion of, first there will be polar nuclei will going to fuse, polar nuclei fuses, and that will become 2n. Along with that one egg cell, one male gamete that forms triploid, right? So and finally this is what develops into primary endosperm, develops into endosperm. So endosperm, right, which is triploid, ploid in nature. Polar nuclei after fusion, that is primary nuclei into secondary nuclei, and then endosperm. So NN, they are going to fuse to form 2N, and along with that one male gamete, that is with N, that forms triploid, that is endosperm. Next, in ovary after fertilization is converted into, so ovary which will be converted into, as we all know that, so ovary which develops into fruit, right? Zygote develops into embryo, right? So that is what, and ovules develops into seeds. Endosperm, that is primary endosperm nucleus to secondary endosperm nucleus, and then endosperm. Syngamy means, that is what fusion of, generally we can say that the here two male and female gametes, they produce diploid zygote which is also called as ooze pair, right? So that is where we can say that they are going to produce the fusion of gametes, produce, what is it, the zygote, produce zygote, they are going to produce zygote, right? That is by the fusion of gamete. fertilization of egg takes place inside. So fertilization of egg always takes place, what is it, the inside the embryo sac. Inside the embryo sac. So answer for 54th is D. So where egg exactly? Because fertilization means the male gamete, the sperm with egg, right? So this egg is a part of this embryo sac. That is why we can say embryo sac. So as we all know that anther, which produces male gametes in the plants, called as a pollen grains, right? And here stigma is a receptive surface, receptacle for the pollen grain, and pollen tube that which transfer the male gamete into the ovary, pollen tube, right, that develops from the intine. So answer is that embryo sac. Milky water green coconut. So when you consider this, the coconut, the Cocos nucifera, many nuclei will be there. That is multinucleated. So that is milky watery green coconut. So this is endosperm. So that endosperm, which is actually liquid endosperm, right? If kennel, kai ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ನಾವೇನು ಗಂಜಿ, that is actually that is a liquid endosperm. Here it is, this is like solid endosperm, right? Here that is kennel represents the cellular endosperm, and whereas liquid endosperm, free nuclear endosperm, endosperm. Excuse me. So with this we can conclude this chapter. Thank you.